again. We have an interest in you and your business, so we're running these weekly lunchtime talks. Let's see how together we can put the Bible back into business. My name is Trevor Boyd and I'm the minister here in First Rathfriland Presbyterian Church, and you can find out more about us by visiting our YouTube channel or by clicking the subscribe button to stay in touch and to get our weekly updates. Today, as we meet together, we're going to be thinking about the leadership of a young woman called Esther under the title Courageous Esther. And to set the scene, we're going to read from the book named after her. It's Esther chapter 4, and we're going to read from verse 13 to 17. It says, "And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, 'Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from some other place. But you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?' Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, 'Go, gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan, and fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise, and so I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I perish, I perish.' So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther commanded him." We finish there at the end of the chapter. The stark reality is that we all face problems. We all face handicaps of different kinds and hardships inside and outside of work. But they in themselves are not the crippling factor. Rather, it's the person concerned that is key. Esther had disadvantages that we learnt about last week, or you can go back and listen to the Business Lunchtime Talk from last week here on YouTube, just to remind yourself about those. All around us, we can see people overcoming the odds and achieving goals that no one thought was possible. These are often highlighted for us in sport and business. We see examples of how people or a sports club or a business achieved something that was unexpected. And you can search again on YouTube under top 10 inspirational videos for some examples in this area. If these people had allowed their handicaps or their hardships or their background to get in the way, they wouldn't have evolved into the person they were to be, or brought into being their inventions for the benefit of many people. In business, you've heard it said that timing is everything, and it's a big part of getting the business strategy right. Mordecai informed Esther that she was chosen for such a time as this. Esther had been selected as queen to fulfill God's purpose. She was chosen for a specific reason. Esther used her position for good, rather than to tear down or manipulate a situation for her own personal gain. In Esther's case, she used her position for the greater good of her people, thousands of them spread across the Persian Empire. In every decade, there are companies and there are businesses that seem to be better than others at getting the right balance between making a profit, caring for their staff, and making a positive difference to the quality of life for their customer, or indeed changing how people do things. The learning for each of us today, and it might be difficult for some to accept, is that God doesn't make a mistake about where He has placed you or me today. We are to content ourselves knowing that we are in the right place. The question is, what are we supposed to be doing to make a difference? to make a difference to those we work with, to make a difference to our business, to make a difference to the customers, or indeed to how they do things. In business, there's a lot of weight attached to collecting data on market trends, consumer attitudes, convenience, etc., in order to be able to make a good business decision. But how many people will actually stop and pray about making a business decision? And yet, if we follow the example of Esther, we will see that when we have collected the data, when we've collected all of that background information, that we need to pray to God for guidance. When it comes to decision making, there are times when you might say, well, look, let me sleep on that for a night. I want to sleep on it before I make up my mind. And well, Esther, she also did that. She waited 3 days to make up her mind. And when it comes to decisions, we all know that people are looking for an answer at some point or other. We must gather up the courage and then move forward what we've decided. There will be occasions when we just don't have all the answers, and those are the times when we have to step out in faith, expecting that everything will work out in the end. Those are the times when we allow God to determine the outcome for us. Esther was a good queen, and I believe that she would have made a great businesswoman because she possessed a great deal of courage. In this situation, she was willing to die for her people. This is referenced in chapter 4 and verse 16. Go gather together all the Jews who are in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. And that give her time to reflect, to sleep on her decision. I and my attendants will fast as you do. And when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. So here was the courage coming in. It was against the law to go to the king, but the courage was there to go to him. And she says, if I perish, I perish. She was willing to die on behalf of our people. And death, for any of us, it's a scary pill to swallow. But Esther was ready to accept death if that meant it was what God had planned for her. Esther knew that she wanted to save her people, and she had allowed Almighty God to turn the steering wheel of events. Even though possessing courage can mean risking it all, sometimes that's exactly what we must do. Esther, she acted with courage. Esther stepped out in faith to do what was right. She acted in obedience to instructions that were given to her. Courage is not something that we all possess, or we don't necessarily all possess it in great quantities. Instead, courage is a characteristic that is developed over time. And here, just as for us, God provides the platform. He provided the platform for Esther. He's providing various platforms for each of us to demonstrate our courage, to make decisions, to lead, and to serve people. When we feel passionate about a cause, a heavenly presence, Almighty God will stand beside us and allow us to speak a little louder, to stand a little taller, and to shine a little brighter. So next time when you're faced with a challenging situation, take the opportunity to remember the courage of Esther. Remember that Esther faced and ultimately accepted that she could die. But she accepted that for the greater good of humanity. And we're all placed on earth for a purpose. And it's important for us to be able to identify and to get our heads around why we're here and why God has placed us at this time where He has. Today, be an Esther. Don't allow your hardships to hold you back. Don't allow your beginning to portray your end. Let's overcome those hardships, those handicaps, those problems, and be courageous and lead forward. And can I ask you today, because you're listening to me and in some ways you're listening for answers and advice, etc. But today can we wrap up with a question? What would look different in your life if it was marked or if it was influenced by a greater hope in God? And so I leave that with you today as we finish. What would look different in your life if it was marked by a greater hope in God? Thanks for spending time with us today. Now, we'll not see you next week. I'm having a week away, but we'll see you in the same place at the same time in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.